Okay, so in this video, I want to talk about generational healing. It's something that many people underestimate the impacts of, but it has the power, once you get onto this healing journey, has the power to change generations before you and generations thereafter. So it has that ripple effect, which is so, so important. Generational trauma, as I've touched on before, are things like if you've had someone in your family that was a victim of abuse, and then they abused you, and then it went down and it traveled down the lineage in that way. Or if you come from a lineage that has potentially been impacted by war zones or genocide, if you come from a lineage that suffered slavery and any kind of unfair treatment, all of those generational wounds live in the emotional memory of your foremothers and fathers. And if they go unspoken about, if they go untended to, they just, they become more embedded throughout the generations. And what you can find is that if they do go unhealed, they will manifest themselves in different ways, different symptoms, but people won't be able to connect. Why are they feeling anger? Why are they feeling resentment or rage or whatever it may be when they see a more kind of recent event? And it's usually because they've got this generational trauma. And generational trauma is such a huge topic. It's far-reaching, but there are things that really are impacted by people that suffer from generational trauma, such as the way that you parent, and also the way that you have been parented, if that's a word. But the way that you parent, often, as I say, our formative years, like at the age of 0 to 7, is when we really shape ourselves. We're like sponges, we're very malleable. Anything that we hear or see and experience is being embedded into our sort of almost the foundation of our being. And therefore, those caregivers, your parents, the people that were in charge of looking after you and had the responsibility for rearing you, the way that they did that and the way that they treated you and the attachment that you had with them, whether that was a healthy attachment or an avoidant attachment, there's different attachment styles, that will all impact the person that you are, and then how you present yourself in relationships, be that romantic, familial, friendships, business relationships. So there is a real link between your experience in your early formative years and then how you conduct your relationships as an adult. And you'll often find that there are people that have similar struggles in their romantic relationships, for example, as their parents went through, because it's something that they saw, it's what they grew up in, it's almost like what they marinated in that environment. So until there's a conscious awareness that they want to break the cycles or break the patterns or go back and go for healing, so they can write a new story and create a new trajectory for the descendants to come, those patterns will continue to cyclically play out, essentially, until somebody in the line, in the generational lineage, decides to be the pattern breaker, the cycle breaker, the chosen one, as some people refer to. And taking on that role is not necessarily an easy one, but I'm telling you, it's so rewarding, it's so necessary. And you'll find that when you undertake your healing journey, you may come across opposition. That may be opposition from what you may feel to be spiritual forces, but it could also be opposition in your family line or in the groups that you are, your community groups, because they're used to things being done in the same way for generations. And so you're kind of coming up against their learned patterns and ways of behavior. And it can also come up as resistance in yourself, because you are going against the grain almost, you're doing something very different. So an analogy I use is if you liken it to a ship. So if you've got a big ship on the waters and it needs to turn, the way in which it goes about doing that turn, it's not just going to be like, if you're in a car, like an easy 3-point turn, done in 3 maneuvers. It's going to take time because it's going against the resistance of the current of the water. So give yourself grace as you do kind of go against the grain, and you set a new trajectory and you form a new path. It's no easy feat, but it's so worthwhile. And when you embark on that generational healing, as I say, you not only change the trajectory for yourself, but you also change it for your descendants. So ancient tribes often say that when you go through healing, you're healing 7 generations that have gone before you and 7 generations thereafter. And I definitely believe that there's a lot to be said about that. It says, for example, in lots of scripture, but in the Bible, that people pay for the mistakes or the sins of their forefathers or foremothers. And whether or not you subscribe to the Bible, you subscribe to those principles, it's the scientific and kind of the universal law element of that is if you see dominoes, and if you had a stack of dominoes kind of stood up and lined up, and you push the first domino, it's going to inevitably fall into the next one, which is going to fall into the next one and the next one, and on it goes like that. So that is also another way of seeing it. Another way is if you were to throw a stone into a body of water, when you look at it, you notice a ripple occur in the water, and then there's a next ripple and a next ripple, and it ripples so far out from where that stone originally landed. So this is why it's really, really important to embark on your generational healing journey. And when you come across that resistance, I really invite you to push through. And there are times when pushing is going to be laborious and it's going to be hard, and so you're going to need to rest. Obviously, that's fine, and give yourself that grace, but don't give up on your healing journey. Just know that the resistance is, for anything to elevate, it needs a bit of resistance. If you think of an aeroplane, when it's going through its elevation, there's the resistance, and it needs that perfect like formula for it to then take off into its ascent. So if you see your journey in the same way, just know that you kind of just need to give yourself that push, or get the support, have a support system in place to push you through so that you can elevate. And then once you overcome certain lessons and you graduate them, it's so liberating. And what I will also say is that because certain generational traumas and patterns and cycles could be that deeply ingrained, there may be times where you almost relapse into a certain way of being or a certain way of doing. And if that happens, it's okay. You get back on the wagon and you keep pushing and you keep going again, giving yourself that grace, and always keeping the conscious awareness of your intention of what it is you want to overcome, aligning with the person that you want to be, and the legacy and the story that you want to leave for your family. And if you're a caregiver, this is really important. If you're a parent, oftentimes if you suffered from any kind of generational trauma, you often have to go back and potentially reparent parts of yourself. And in doing so, you may be simultaneously reparenting yourself while parenting others that are, in your care. And again, if you find yourself being triggered in certain instances, or conducting certain behaviors or acting in a certain way that you're not necessarily proud of, or it's like, oh, that reminds me of, such and such, the person who raised you that may have inflicted trauma, or whatever it is, or a teacher that, was responsible for your care and they spoke to you in a certain way, and you then find yourself regurgitating that kind of similar way of being. That is because of the subconscious programming that took place when you were in their care, particularly if it was something that occurred multiple times. So in order to reverse and unlearn and undo that conditioning and that programming, you continuously have to input new programs. So create new memories and create new associations with some of those traumatic memories, so that you can empower yourself to be in a more joyful, balanced state of being. And just keep the faith and keep pushing. And as I say, definitely have your support mechanisms, and use that trifold stance with it. So using that structure of mind, body, soul. So there's the mind element. It might be that you need to seek professional psychological assistance as you go on this journey of healing. And then there's the body. So what is it you're putting in your body? Don't neglect, the importance of what you eat, what you drink, how you sleep, how you, going into nature, things like that. Make sure that you're giving yourself that natural medicine that you need for your body to thrive. And then there's the soul and the spiritual element. So what are your spiritual practices? Is that prayer? Is that meditation? Is that going and communing with a group of kindred souls, kindred people who want to see you well and wish you well, and you all come together with the same intention for healing, and sharing your journey? But attending to all of those elements is going to give you the holistic healing that you definitely put you well on the way to your holistic healing journey. You can't, put your all into one and forget the others, because then everything will be out of balance. So definitely have it in your mind that you are going to, or write it down, that you're going to have this, mind, body, soul and spirit aspect to your healing. And then maybe list or think about how you're going to undertake your approach to healing each of those elements of yourself, so that you can be a whole being.